My name is Torrence Tea-Buggz Griffin. I'm from Chicago. I live in Chicago now, but I was originally born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've been dancing for, let's say I've been dancing since 1979. And I represent quite a few crews, but here's my one crew I'm in now. Street Patrol, Robot Mafia, Electric Funketeers, Pop Patrol, and that's about it for now. The first time that I saw popping was back in 1979 on the weekly dance show Soul Train. That was my first time seeing the dance. I started dancing 1979, right after I saw it on Soul Train. That very day and that night, I was at the club trying it. And I started when I was about 18. Yeah, about 18, that's when I really started getting into it. In the beginning, I didn't take it seriously. It was just like a little fad, something to do. And then what happened, I did a spring recital show, and that's when it got serious. That's when I started training hard. What happened for me, summer '79, I joined Electric Funketeers. That was my original first crew, Electric Funketeers. And then later on in that summer, I ran into JD3PO, and that was the guy who taught me like everything, because at that time I didn't know nothing. I just knew a few moves that I saw on Soul Train. So I got with him late summer '79, and then from there I got better and better, and ran into a couple other crews, Pop Patrol, Electric Boogie Boys, Men from Mars. There was a whole lot of groups here. Those are some of the main ones, and Venus Electronic. So, and I would dance with them, against them, and everything. So, yeah, so that's about how I really got it going. Then 1980, 81, that's when things just blew up and took off here in Chicago. It was like a different crew on every block. Everywhere you went, crew. I mean, it was like hundreds of them. And the battles were everywhere. Street corner, grocery stores, movies, parks, wherever there was music, there was a battle. So early 80s, say 1980 to like 1983 or 4, Chicago was definitely top 3. I mean, we had like some awesome poppers here, so many great poppers, and because we were getting influenced by what we seen, and then we were getting a lot of influence from the stuff that the guy I mentioned earlier, JD3PO, because he brought a lot of styles to Chicago, and because of that, that helped us to take off. So. Well, another thing, like back in the 80s, as far as the battles went, you had like a few organized battles, but mostly the battles were informal. It's like you're at a club, hey, what's up? Let's go. And so the battles just happen everywhere. It's like more, you're in neighborhoods, like, hey man, I heard about you and I heard you was pretty good. What you got? So that's how the battles jumped out, because it wasn't nearly that many organized contests like there are now. So everything was mostly like by just word of mouth. I heard you was good. I heard you was good. Yeah, well, meet me at such and such. And then like for Chicago, we would mainly battle in the parks, or we would battle like downtown, like on Michigan Avenue, Rush Street, places like that. So that's how it was back then. Oh, well, the other thing is, it wasn't always about battles, because it was still predominantly just go to the club and just have fun. And then you would just pop. So it was mainly more about the party vibe. Just wanted to go out and show off your move, basically. And the battles just happened secondary, because it wasn't really as serious as it is now. So back then it was still mainly a fun vibe. I'm gonna go out, show my moves off, and that was how that went. The poppers, especially here, weren't traveling as much as they do now. Me myself, I traveled a lot because I was working with the Magic of Spellbinder, so I got a chance to go all over the country, different parts of the world, and I got a chance to see all different kind of poppers. And the thing is, because I was so just focused on myself, I was very narcissistic. I was trying to be the best popper, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to a lot of things, but I trying to remember anything stand on in particular. Like when I went to Kansas City, I was surprised at their scene because they weren't big as Chicago, but they had like this big popping scene. I was like, wow, this is nice. And then when I traveled overseas, like went to London and Britain and a few other places, they didn't really have popping over there yet. It was like, oh, what is that? Oh my goodness. So over there it was like, you could pop, it was like, oh, wow. Ooh. So that was some of my fondest memories. Yeah, now the street performing aspect, we started doing that, like really seriously hitting that, like about like 81, we started street performing. And that was another thing to kind of help the popping scene stay alive, because you can go out and make money, and you would get these huge crowds. And back then it was okay because the police weren't cracking down on us. We could have gigantic crowds, so that turned into like to the other job. So like on the weekends, you hit the tourist sites downtown. You can make like anywhere from $500 to $1,000, and you just split that with your crew. So that became like the thing. Like you train, and you go out, make some money. Because if you weren't a professional getting shows, then you can always go out and just make money on the side. So that turned into a big side industry for the poppers, because then you see poppers lying all the way down the block downtown and by the hotels. And that was a good business until the 80s. Like the main thing, like say Chicago poppers were mainly focusing on like their floating and their waves. That was like the two biggest things I remember: floating and waves, and then a little lightweight cookery. But those three main things, and definitely the glides, floating, wave, water waves. So it was like a lot of waves here, and you may see a little robot. The robot wasn't really like big here. So it was just basically those three things were the main things. What happened like here, around about say 84, 85, the whole scene drastically changed. And a big reason for that is the house music jumped off real big here in Chicago. So a lot of the poppers, basically about all the poppers, it's like one Saturday you in the club, next Saturday everybody is jacking up, oh man. So it played out literally, and if you were popping, it was it's played out, it's over. And so the bottom like just fell out, and it's like almost overnight. Like one Saturday popping is big, next Saturday it's gone, and that was it. And it declined, and it declined across the whole country also. But it just here in Chicago, it was so drastic. I mean, because you went from like hundreds of crews and poppers to just like now maybe 4 or 5 crews, maybe 100 poppers across the whole city. And that's how devastating it was. It just went, and it was like to the point where you would be embarrassed. Like if you tried to pop and people saw you, they would laugh at you. Oh, let's pull you down. Oh man, you need to give that up. So, and that's what happened, and that changed the game. And that was the end. That was the end for here for a while. So what did I do? What did I do? Let me tell you what I did. I did what anybody would do, just about. I got in on the action. I started jacking it up, but I still kept popping. I just kept my popping to myself because I was still a professional popper because I was still traveling and doing shows. A lot of poppers didn't quite make it where I was, so I was like, well, you know, I was still, and I still have my regular popping gigs. So I did both. I just did both. I was like, forget it. And also, you know, I'd be at the like the Warehouse, famous Chicago dance spot in the 80s. I would go there and I would like pop the house music. Boom, 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 boom. So I just walked the line. I did it both. So, and then like round about like say 89, it started kind of like start picking up. And I was like, oh, okay. Wow, I didn't know why it was coming back, but I saw this is good. Okay, cool. So the 90s, when the 90s came, popping started kind of slowly getting back. I started seeing it on TV because I remember seeing the Rocksteady crew on MTV, and they were like breaking and popping. I was like, oh wow, okay. So when that happened, then it sort of boom, started taking off. And then I also, the Electric Boogaloos were doing their thing, and they were like a big reason for the resurgence of the popping, because they kind of never, I think they never stopped, they just kept going. So that kind of helped everything out. Well, one thing like real quick, the 80s music was very funky, very melodic, and it had like a lot of small stuff in it that you could catch as a popper. And then what happened, because as the music changed, the popping also changed too. So the music got faster and less melodic and everything. So what happened, the popping went more, the popping started going more bam, 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 to keep up with the changing music. But at the same time, that also helped the popping reach a more widespread audience. Because of that, because like you have artists that now they're putting poppers in the videos. And so that helped, but that changed the style a bit of the popping in general. You know, you had a couple of people that stayed pure, but because of the music, you can only do certain things now. And that's what kind of led to the resurgence of like the robotic styles, boom, bop, because you can still boom, 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 boom. So a lot of the little stuff kind of faded out of the game. But on the plus side, the new music helped the popping reach a more wider audience worldwide. Yeah, and about like, I would say like early like 91 or 92, I went out to LA, so I just wanted to see what was out there. So I got a chance to spend a couple of weeks out there, and I got a chance to run into like a whole lot of poppers, and a lot of them shared a lot of cool stuff with me about waving, like proper waving technique, cobra, tutting, that was my thing, so I ran into a lot of that. And then well, I wish I could remember all these guys' names. We were just out, just chilling at the boulevard, wherever those poppers were, I was just trying to go there. And like, they helped me tighten up like my robotic styles, because I was really horrible at that. And my LA trip was like very, very, it really blew my mind, because once again, out there, their popping scene was, back then, it was still even way, way bigger than what I had here in Chicago. So I was like, wow, these guys, and they had like, you know, like older guys doing it. And I was like, wow, okay, because here in Chicago, you didn't see anybody over 35 popping, and out there they had guys that were like, man. And I didn't know popping had been out so long. Like, man, it's been out since, I think one guy said, man, it kind of started back in '67. I was like, what? I thought it was '79. So I learned a whole lot, and a whole lot about the history of popping too while I was out there. in the 90s, popping battles in general, it still wasn't a lot of it because we just didn't have that many poppers. That was the thing. And sometimes maybe at a battle or breaking battle, they might throw in a popping battle because the popping in the early 90s, we still didn't have enough poppers to like say throw a purely popping event in the early 90s. But the later 90s, then it started picking up to where, you know, you can throw an event and you can attract enough poppers now to actually have a popping contest. So late 90s, early 90s, it was like, man, you know, popping, they still doing that? So here it was like some type of bubble for Chicago. It was still like some type of bubble because I just always say this, the popping never really recovered from that first hit that it took in the house music here, and even to this day. Well, the Midwest popping scene in general was still like going good, because when I traveled like St. Louis, Ohio, places like that, they had a nice popping scene. I was like, wow, the popping scene is great here, and that's what I found all across the Midwest in general. And I was like, okay, so all right, I see the popping scene is pretty good. And I think the thing is with Midwest poppers in general, the Midwest is like they were often underrepresented because you wouldn't even know that there was a Midwest where they have these flourishing popping scenes, because you know you just wouldn't know unless you went there. And that was one of the benefits of being able to travel, because I could see, like, oh, even in some of the most smallest towns, I wish I could remember all of the names, but they each had these big, gigantic popping scenes. I was like, wow, this is really nice. So I was like real encouraged, because I thought, well, you know, you got to go out to California and maybe hit New York if you want to like really get immersed into the whole popping thing. But the Midwest in general, fantastic popping scene. And like I said, the thing is it's just that you wouldn't know, because it's like no one really talks about it, especially then. It was like, Midwest, what is that? Yeah, now my favorite style, tutting, started that. One of my first styles started in the 1991. And then, you know, and the thing with tutting, it wasn't such a big style across the Midwest, because it was still rare to see somebody actually do it, which was kind of tripped out, because it was like, I'm the only one here that tuts? Okay, cool. And that worked out for me. So I was like, oh, cool. And then around about the 90s, it started picking up, you know, because then, you know, what happened, different kind of tut styles came out. Magazine, finger tutting, and all type of stuff started exploding. And so that's what happened. So then tutting turned into a big thing. It went from being a nothing thing, it's like, oh, there's just another style, who cares about that, to now it's one of the styles. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's cool to be a tutter now? Because at first it wasn't always cool to be a tutter. Just letting everybody know. Like, that's not really popping, man. Okay, so I think I'm done. Great question. Egyptian bang. What's the deal, T? Here's the deal. Well, the Egyptian bang is a combination of waving, cobra, python, animated effects, and naturally a hard hit. And most of that came from a style called Bammy. It's a style that only a few people did, but I took the Bam style, and I just mixed it with the tut and threw in a lot of other ingredients. So that's how I came up with it, because I said, man, I want to see some hits in the tuts. Where them hits? I wasn't seeing no hits the hits disappeared from tutts. I said, T. Bring back the hits. So that's what gave birth to the Egyptian band. Yeah, now, when 2000s came, that changed the game, because also, and a big factor for that, as far as that really helping the popping game out, was the internet. Because now, dancers from all over the world can now see each other and pick up stuff from each other. So that really like boosted everything. Because I remember, I was like, wow, you know, what's going on? I'm seeing more and more people do the dance. And then I was like, oh, the internet, because now I got a chance to see people that I've never seen before. I've seen people from all over the world, LA, New York, Toronto, everywhere. I was like, oh, so that helped feed everything. I was like, oh, this is great for the dance, to me. Some people say, oh, it's the end of the dance, but that helped keep the dance going. And because of that, that led to more styles getting seen, and now you have all these different varieties of styles that people now know about. And 2000s, early 2000s, that's when I ran into Poppin' Chuck, because he came here. So that's how we ended up, you know, starting the group Robot Mafia. Him, me, and Cobra, which is, he's been with me from pretty much day one, from the 80s till now. So me, Cobra, Poppin' Chuck, all right, 3 OGs, let's do Robot Mafia. And things started taking off from there. And then also, that's when I restarted the Electric Funketeers and Paw Patrol. Electric Funketeers, they went on to become a very big, successful popping group here in Chicago, the rebooted version of them. Shots out to the Funketeers. All right. Well, part of the reason why I restarted 3 crews, because Chicago didn't have a lot of popping crews to begin with. So I was like, man, I want to get some crews here as opposed to having just one big gigantic crew. So I was like, well, you know, let's restart Electric Funketeers, let's do Paw Patrol, let's do Robot Mafia. That'll give us 3 crews. My original plan is I wanted to come up with 5 crews, 5 Chicago-based crews. And the idea was to make some noise to let everybody know, hey, we got some popping crews here in Chicago, and we were going to represent the Midwest. That was like the master plan. Like, okay, we're going to train hard, get these crews together, we're going to rep Chicago and the whole Midwest. And that was the original plan. That's why I just didn't have, say, just one big master crew. So that was the thing. Yeah, well, another thing that happened, because of the internet, we were able to get a few international dancers that wanted to come here because they had seen Robot Mafia. They wanted to come over and train. That didn't happen often, but it did happen where, you know, we had people like, oh, I saw your video on the internet and I'm going to be in Chicago. Like, they would be coming to Chicago to vacation. They were like, hey, while I'm there, I want to hook up with you guys. So we were getting a lot of that. And that's because of the internet. They saw our videos like, oh man, I want to hang out with you guys. Like, you know, OG poppers. Oh, wow. So that was cool. That was cool. So the internet worked out for Chicago and the Midwest in general, because that gave people, they could look and they can now see, oh, there's stuff happening there. Oh, wow. I'm going to be vacation there. I'm going to be there for the summer. Or, well, sometimes we would get overseas college students that would come and they wanted to hey, well, I'm there. I want to train some popping for the summer. Went through. So, yes, internet. Yes. My transition from being mainly a battler, performing dancer, about 1986 or 7. That's when I started making the transition from oh, you know what, I kind of like teaching. So I got mainly into teaching, and then about the 90s, I became more of a teacher like anything else. Like, okay, yeah, I perform, but I love teaching. And then 2000, that's when I kind of switched to say I went 80% teaching, 20%, I'm just gonna go out and do my thing. So, and I ended up being able to teach like all the Funketeers. I worked with all of them, and I just work with people in general. Just hey, come over, we're gonna work some popping. And then I went from there. Chicago Public Schools, I'm teaching there. Currently, I'm teaching at Columbia University of Chicago. So now I'm just full-time teacher mode. You want to learn? Come get taught. 2010, 10-ish brother, the all-style battle started jumping on. Now, what happened? Because of that, it watered down a lot of, well, I'm gonna speak about popping in general. It watered the popping down a whole lot. Because then what happened, you maybe had people want to learn, I want to learn a few moves of popping. They're not poppers. And then you have poppers, well, I better learn how to do some other styles so I can get off. So it watered everything down. And that's one of the biggest things. I was talking to a few people and they actually thought, well, all style battles meant I got to do all styles. So I got to do all of these styles so that I can win. And that mentality sort of like changed everything. So now instead of spending like say maybe hours working on your style, you went from this to that, so that like brought the overall level of stick to popping, it dropped. Because now I'm like, oh, what's going on here, man? What's happening? So the all-style battles, it was like a double-edged sword. It was a good thing and a bad thing. And the bad part is just that the dancers, a lot of dancers, they quit focusing on their strength. And there's an old saying that we have for dancers, it's like never show people what you're not good at. Don't show them what you can't do. In an all-style battle, I see that all the time. I see people trying to do popping stuff that they've never worked on. You can tell they ain't trained. No, they're not serious poppers. They don't even have a damn pop. That's right, I said it. You pop. So things got just so watered down, which brings us to where we are now. And that's just how it's going to be. So I personally don't have a problem with it. Hey, whatever. Just keep it dancing. The moves are universal, y'all. So, but that's what happened. So I think the all-style things, once again, double-edged sword with some good and some bad. Well, there's there's something that's really good. That now that you have like a whole new generation of poppers in the game now. So I think what's going to happen is, because at first I thought the popping wasn't going to survive. But now so many poppers in the game, it's going to survive, but it comes down to the how part. And that's what I don't know. Some people say the popping game is dying. I don't really see it dying. I just see that it's different. That's the main thing. It's just different now. And maybe the poppers, most of them, because I see some really great poppers out there, but maybe the majority of them, they don't really maybe practice the skill set to attain mastery because I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. So the foundation is suffering. That's what I do see, because not enough time is spent on learning foundation. That's the dirty F word now. But fundamentals, foundation, and form, that's what's suffering. If that's why you're popping, I'm just kidding. But that's why, that's what I see that has to be really worked on. But the popping will survive. It's just going to come down to like the how part. Like, will it be good form, or will it just be, this other thing? Where this is my personal observation, where I see what's happening now. Everybody wants to pretty much look like everybody else. It's like, who's going to be the best at doing the exact same thing? Because this is what I see now. Like, well, you know, what about your individuality? Create your own, you know, your own thing. Come up with your own things. Like, no, I want to look like dudes. People come to class and teach me how to look like such and such. Well, no, I can't do that. I'm not the teacher for that. I mean, the thing is with popping in general, then I'm gonna leave it here. Popping in general is the art of individual expression. Find your own unique self with it, and don't be afraid to display that. You don't need nobody else's validation or so. That's cool. You make it cool. That's all it comes down to. Express yourself. So, like, you know, one thing that I would definitely say to the younger generation, if you know like some OGs, definitely talk with them and get the knowledge, because they have some stuff that they can really share. That would be my main thing, because while they're still here, because one thing to bear in mind, they're getting older. It's going to come a time where they can't even move the way they move now. So I would say take this opportunity right now to get whatever you can from them. Even if it's just like hearing them talk about the history. I know sometimes it can be a little boring, but soak it up, because there's going to be a time where there will be no more like first generation OGs. We still have a few left. So I would definitely say take the opportunity now to get some knowledge from these first and second generation OGs, because when they're gone, that part of popping will be gone. It's like there's already a lot of styles that already went extinct, styles that you'll never see again, because when the originators died, that went with them. So if you got an OG, support your neighborhood OG. Take his class pronto. And the thing is, like for international dancers, I would definitely say this, because what happened, I understand what happened, because the EBs hit first, so their style became predominant. But times have changed now, and now there's a variety of styles. So I would definitely say, if I was an international dancer, I would definitely look and find other styles, because they're out there. I mean, there's so many styles, it would be ridiculous. So I would say, open up your mind a bit, if you're not already doing it, because now I actually see more international dancers doing more than just the EB style. But I still see it's still predominantly EB dominated. And I would just say this, jump out the box. Jump out the fishbowl. Don't be another brick in the wall. Experiment. So many great styles. I mean, just go on the internet. You can see it all. So my last piece of advice to international dancers, don't be afraid to experiment. And just do what you feel. And that's always been the main thing with dancing in general. I keep saying it. It's the art of individual expression. Okay? Give other dancers a try. I just want to say thank you for checking this out, and hopefully I said something that you will find of use or help. But if you can, and also you can always hit me up on Facebook, Instagram with any other questions, and don't be afraid to take my online classes too.